Um, Good morning, Remax Preferred and Remax of Cherry Hill, to our to our Thursday morning meeting. We're glad that everybody could come out and join us this morning. Today we have special guests all the way from Denver, Colorado. We have Josh Culver. Josh is going to be speaking to us today about some tips and tricks and um, that that you could use with Google, right, Josh?
Yeah, definitely going to talk through all the things around Google My Business and how to just try to get your listings, your reviews, your Google My Business listings. I know sometimes talking to agents, I start going down the road of listings, and they automatically start thinking of the homes that they're listing. When I usually say listings in these presentations, I'm talking through your listings on Google. But yeah, I got to talk through a lot of that stuff today.
Now, Josh is joining us from headquarters. Josh, why don't you tell us what you do there, your title there, and then
Sure.
we'll just take it from there, and then I'll just leave it off to you. How's that?
Okay, I'll just start going. Well,
All
let me
right,
share my screen here. Boom. Cool. Well, yeah, as Randall said, I am coming from Colorado, so happy to jump on and hope everyone's doing well. One quick caveat as we get started, I feel like we are starting pandemic all over again, because I thought I had all of my internet issues ironed out, but yesterday I had a few. So if I have a few today, I apologize, but we should be all good. A little bit about me. I am the executive director of integrated marketing with Remax LLC. And a little bit more about my background. I've actually been doing digital marketing in some form or fashion for about 13 years. And I love it. It's a really fun space to be in, but it also changes a lot. And that's why I think, presentations like this and talking through what's current and what's the best way to do things is always valuable, because it always changes, right? I may be giving this presentation, and then in 6 months there's an algorithm change with Google, or there's something that changes in the space that kind of makes everything go sideways. But I always think that this is really valuable. I started doing in digital marketing. I actually started out in SEO, which is search engine optimization, and that's trying to rank higher in Google, right, with your web pages and with your content. And then have expanded into digital marketing in terms of like search, advanced search, paid search, and then programmatic and all the other pieces that come with like Facebook. So I've been in the space for a while, and the last few years I've been focused on that in the franchise space, right? So I always like, being a part of a big brand and having a big national presence, but what ultimately it falls flat if it doesn't move the needle for you in your local market. So I'm very passionate about doing things that's going to, at the national level, that's ultimately going to help in your local market and help you guys who are there every day. So excited to talk through some of that stuff today, with the focus on Google and specifically more around Google My Business. As we get started here, I am trying to watch the chat, but feel free to ask any questions that come along. There's a lot of information in here, and as I said, with some of the changes, it's a little bit hard to keep up. If you can walk away with 2 or 3 tangible things that you can go out and do after this presentation, to me that's a win. You don't have to retain all of the knowledge. If you can at least walk away saying, okay, I'm gonna fix my name, address, phone number information, or whatever that is, to me that's a win, and that'll hopefully help you in the space. So going through the agenda a little bit is what is the state of search? What does search look like? And how that's changed over the last few years. And then we'll talk through consumer behavior, and how that has affected some of that change. Get into Google My Business and some recommendations there, and then some additional sources for like leads or other things that, if you're not going to take the time or if you don't have the time. I know a lot of agents have very busy schedules. If you don't have the time to dedicate to kind of clean some of this stuff up and optimize this, that's okay. We also have other options that might make it a little bit easier for you. So like I said, kind of a lot of information, but ask questions, feel free to stop me at any point. I know, you know, if you're in a big state like Colorado, you don't worry about how some of the state lines bleed over and addresses and things like that. I know in some of the states in the East Coast, in terms of New Jersey, you might also work in New York. You might also have listings in Pennsylvania. So there's a little bit of crossover there, which makes this stuff always a little bit interesting, but still give you some hopefully tangible recommendations there. So real quick table setting too, as we're talking about, you know, trying to get more local engagement and drive in that local market. What I've always said is paid search is the sprint, and then SEO is more the marathon. SEO, if you're trying to rank organically in Google, it takes a little bit more, it's a little bit of a longer play, it takes a little bit more work, but making sure that you have content that speaks to, you know, some of that stuff, some of the things you may try to be known for in your market, or things that you might be trying to rank for. It's not easy, it doesn't happen overnight, right? Everyone can go to their computer and search Google, and everyone wants to rank #1. So hopefully some of the stuff that we'll talk about will help some of those pieces in terms of some of those rankings, but it's definitely not something that you just flip the switch on and then you're all automatically ranking #1 for, you know, real estate in New Jersey. So with that, I'll go ahead and keep going. So where consumer behavior and customer behavior is going, right? 97% of people learn about a local business online. Taking a little bit further, we found out that most home searches, a recent NAREP study, start with their phone, 98% of them. So we need to be able to meet customers and consumers where they're at. And it's extremely important. That's why it's extremely important to have your local information and your local sites cleaned up and working for you as much as possible, because that's where the consumers usually start, and a lot of times that's on Google and Bing and those search engines. So this is I'm hoping this plays. This is a video this is a video that Google put out, and it's instead of thinking, it's thinking of life in moments. So I'm hoping this plays okay. I know sometimes with Zoom it might get a little might not play ideally. So that play okay? Yeah, good. All right. Okay. Well, hopefully it played all right. So the reason why I wanted to just kind of throw this out there and review this is how Google's thinking about it, right? This is how people are living their lives. I know I'm similar in my own behavior, right? Of, you know, I might be going through my day and, okay, I need my car needs gas. I'm going to use my phone and try and find, you know, a local gas station, or where do I pick up gas? So it's being able to meet the consumer and the customer of where they're at. And so if this is how Google is thinking about it, right? If they're using their their view of how people are engaging with search and with their platforms in terms of YouTube and Google Maps. We need to be thinking about it similarly. So, as I said earlier, it's also true in real estate. I mean, that a lot of those searches are starting, even if it's real estate and property, there's 48% that are doing a search online, either in Google or in Bing, in those search engines. Like I said, a lot of that starts on an app or a phone as well. So being able to make sure that you have your information as clean as possible, as optimized as possible, is extremely important. So as I said earlier, we'll be spending a lot of time talking about Google My Business. And the reason why it'll be a lot around Google My Business is there's more search activity in Google than Bing. But usually what you'll do is if you're optimizing for Google My Business, it'll usually be good for Bing as well. They'll import some of that same data and look for some of those same signals to be able to validate it. But what's really powerful with Google My Business, it's one of the only ways you can say directly to Google is, this is what I'm known for, or this is what I want, this is how I want to appear. A lot of times, with their search engines and the spiders that they use to crawl all of these web pages, they're picking up the information and just kind of understanding it, and then deciding how things are going to ultimately display in search or and come up based on like keywords. What's really powerful about Google My Business is you're able to kind of feed that in directly to Google, and that way you can control a little bit more of the narrative, right? If you're trying to put that you're an expert in townhouses in a particular part of, I'll use Denver because I'm not as familiar with with your guys' geography, but if I'm I'm known for townhouses in Cherry Creek, I'm able to not only put that in Google My Business, but then also put some of that content on my website as well. And that's where you start to see some of those rankings appear and start to be known for some of that stuff in Google. So how does it benefit my business? This is what's really important, is it minimizes customer confusion. One thing that Google doesn't like, and what causes problems a lot with Google, is conflicting information or stuff that it doesn't know how to process. As smart as artificial intelligence is getting and getting better at, there's still things that it doesn't quite figure out, right? That in terms of vernacular, right? If you're calling a soda a Coke versus a pop, or some of those dialect things that we understand, right, as humans speaking to each other, but that Google doesn't quite pick up. So an example of that is if I have my real estate page and I have my information, my legal name is actually Joshua Culver, and sometimes if I have information that says I'm Josh Culver versus Joshua Culver, sometimes Google won't completely understand that I'm still the same person, right? And that'll cause that can cause some conflict, and that can cause some questions. And when there's conflict or questions like that in Google, what you see is that hurts rankings. That hurts your ability to even if it's your own name, rank towards the top of the search engines, or sometimes in that map that it's called a 3-pack, that first 3 that are viewed in a map. So staying consistent with your name, address, and phone number is the biggest thing that I can. That's the biggest thing that I can say in terms of importance for today. So wherever your information is out there as Josh Culver Realtor, or it needs to be consistent across all of those places. So if you're using your mobile phone for everything, and that's usually where you use all your calls, making sure you're using that mobile phone number everywhere. And if you're using your office, that if it's 123 North Main Street, where confusion can come in is 123 N. Main Street ST is going to be different than, and it's getting better, so it's a little bit less of an issue, but it'll still be an issue if you have that versus 123 North, all the way spelled out North Main, and then Street all the way spelled out. So there's still little things that can cause conflict and cause confusion with Google. So the biggest thing I would say is that if you take away anything from this presentation, walk away with anything, being consistent with your name, address, and phone number. It's called your NAP information. If you're on your if you're doing any research around this, or if you've done work on this on your own, making sure that information is consistent across, if that's Facebook, Google My Business, your own website, having that information be consistent, because it takes all of those signals, and that's how it kind of understands where to rank you based on, even if you're trying to rank for real estate agent, if you're trying to rank for your own name, that's incredibly important. So where this all ultimately affects your business is calls, leads, and driving direction, right? Is if someone's starting to do a search or starting to look for homes in your area, or in a particular area, you want to be able to come up first. And ideally, that's going to help your business, right? If you're the first one to get that phone call, if you're the first person to appear in that search result, you're much more likely to get that business and start having those conversations with possible customers. So Google is always changing, as I said earlier. It's always trying to understand how people work and service areas. This is one that historically it hasn't done. Google and Google My Business has not understood service area very well, right? I may be located at 123 Main Street, but I also serve, for, again, using Denver as an example, I may serve the Highlands neighborhood and also the Lodo neighborhood, as well as, Lakewood. It doesn't quite understand that you might go and you might go service those areas, right? For things like real estate, for things like a plumber, some of that stuff. So it's getting a little bit better, but making sure that you go in, and I'll walk through what this looks like when you're actually setting up your Google My Business profile, but making sure that you have your service areas set up and accurate is really important, because that gives that, again, that's another signal that you can send directly to Google to say, no, I actually do work in Cherry Hills as well. I actually do service, the tech center if it's Denver. So it's really important to go through and make sure that you have your service area listed as well. I did see something in the chat. I'm just going to try and make sure. Video was no audio. The video, luckily there wasn't, it was more music. I could have hummed along, but sorry for not humming along for it. So keeping going here, if you have not set up your Google My Business page, it actually may be a little bit easier to try and set it up yourselves, hopefully coming out of this. And as I said, it is changing. If you have it already set up, then I would go back and as I said earlier, just make sure that the information is consistent. Make sure it's consistent across all of your other properties. And I'll definitely have some recommendations. But if you already have a Google My Business page that has reviews that you've started to engage with, that already does okay with ranking, I would just take that same information and make sure that it is consistent. I wouldn't necessarily go through and change a lot of it. If you're having success, as I said earlier, using organic search and trying to rank in Google, it's a marathon and not a sprint. So if you've already started to have that success and already had some success with ranking, then I wouldn't upset the apple cart too much, just making sure that you're using that same information on other places where your information is online. So the first process, if you are setting it up, is claiming your business listing. Again, listing is business listing in Google My Business, not listing for your homes. But going to Google My Business, Google probably already has a listing page set up for you. So I would make sure to check that as well. Even if you yourself have not gone through this process and set this up, or maybe you set it up years ago and you kind of already forgot about it, there's still, Google may already have a page. It may just be a matter of making sure that you own it and go through that ownership process. So to claim your listings, you go to google.com/business and you can start putting in your basic information, right? You can do your business name. For real estate agents usually using your own name first. Check there, as well as if you use any other ones. For example, if you use, Remax Alliance, Josh Culver, checking that information as well. Sometimes they'll have, again, there's a lot of information on the internet and a lot of opportunities for even other people to put in content and start writing reviews, start writing some of that stuff. So it may already be out there. It's just trying to clean some of that up and try to eliminate some of that confusion that might be out there. So making sure you're going through and check all the different versions that might be out there, or ones that you may have used in your past is really important. So what you will then get after you go through, if your information is out there, or if you're putting out your information for the first time, is it'll ask you to verify your information, and that's either via postcard, or sometimes they used to do it more frequently. They've changed a little bit. They also used to do telephone calls to be able to verify that I am who I am. I am a real estate agent. I am at 123 Main Street. Postcard is actually, it takes a little bit longer, but I would actually recommend it because there's less confusion later. The reason why Google doesn't do as many phone calls as they used to for verification is mobile phones. They prefer a landline to be able to do it. But then also, anybody can still go through this process and have some of the basic information to try and claim it. So postcard, while it does take a little bit longer, I do recommend it, because what it does is they'll send you a postcard in the mail, and you'll get it at your location. It'll have a verification code that you just come back to Google to enter to be able to verify, and then you can verify your Google My Business listing. Now, before you go through this process and then in 4 weeks start cursing at me, Google, it is Google. They do still make mistakes. So sometimes you might have to ask for a postcard again. You might have to say, hey, I still haven't seen my postcard. Please resend it. That has happened. Again, as I said earlier, I've been in this space for verifying Google business locations probably the last 5 or 6 years. You would not be the first person to have Google resend a postcard to your location. It happens pretty frequently, but as I said, it is a better way of verifying, just because they're sending it to the actual location and you can verify your information. So what that process looks like if you start to go through it. So this is just an example of when you go to my Google business page and you start setting it up. You can start building your profile, right? So be very clear about what you're starting to choose in terms of a business category. You have real estate agency, and then you have real estate agents. If you're an agent yourself, I would click on the real estate agents. And then as I have the example here of my business name, and this is, again, as it says right here, this will help how you get discovered on Google search and Google Maps. And then I did just there's someone who asked a question about a ProSnap Plus. I can jump in here in a little bit. I know I talk a little bit more about that, but I will. You can set it up through HomeSnap. I'll go through that process here in a little bit. And that was kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Is that's part of Megaphone. If you don't have the time to spend, going through the setup process and setting it up, that is definitely an option through Megaphone to use the HomeSnap Pro Plus account. So up to you on if you want to do it that way. Getting back to this a little bit is just making sure you have your business category set up. They are always continuing to expand this in terms of lines of business. Going back a couple of years, they didn't even have real estate agents as an option. They didn't have real estate agency as an option. It used to just be, are you in the real estate sphere? So they're continuing to do this just so they can get more specific information, and it's really powerful for you to use on your end to be able to set up exactly how you want to be listed on Google. So best practices in terms of setting up your profile is updating your business listing. As I said earlier, this example has this example in Michigan. If you're using 4325 Muskegon Road, RD period, making sure you're using RD period everywhere. I can't stress it enough. It's the easiest thing to do, and kind of the hardest thing to do is making sure your name, address, phone number is consistent wherever you're listed. And then also, you know, if you're using a website, if you're using a Bouge website, or if you have your own website that you've used for a long time, including that information is continuing to be as important as well. So just using that main domain as well. So as I said earlier, you know, choosing to verify via postcard is usually the best way to do it. It takes a little bit longer, but then you can have your contact name, and it'll get, like I said, it'll mail you a postcard with a code on it that you then call to verify and set up through Google. So there's also, I'll send this deck out as a follow-up just so you guys get it. But there's a lot of links in here for support at Google My Business. Sometimes it's not the best. You should have my information. It's josh.culver@remax.com. If you have questions, if you run into anything, don't hesitate to send me an email and ask questions, because this stuff, Google doesn't always have the best documentation around Google My Business. So happy to answer any questions that you guys run into. So as I said, you know, making sure that you have the information there. What it gets particularly interesting around is if you have an office versus if you're an agent in that office. So this is one that's changed a little bit over the years in terms of how it should be listed. So you know, if you are going through and setting up this page, make sure that you are not claiming as the actual office. That was something for your broker, your owner to do, or someone in their, you know, in their staff, if they're doing that setup. You still want to be as an agent. So the way to specify that is, as I said earlier, you know, going through that process and choosing real estate agent versus agency. That's very important. And then setting up an example or setting up your actual page. So it's still, you know, if it's you know, using that Remax Alliance example earlier in myself, it would be Remax Alliance and then dash Josh Culver as the real estate agent. So this is one that can cause some confusion, and what you want to separate is that's separating the agent, the actual agent who's doing the listings, doing the work, versus the office itself. But you obviously you still work out of the same location. So it's being very clear on those setup pieces, making sure your name is in there while tied to the office. So this is the example that we use, obviously, John Smith in the Remax office, making sure you have the Remax office name first, and then the actual agent name. So that's one that can definitely cause some confusion. And you don't want to, if it asks you about, you know, claiming the office, unless you're actually in the office itself, you know, doing that work, I would let your broker owner claim the actual office, because I know there can be a lot of confusion. So I'm getting a few questions here. I just want to be able to take a moment, because this can cause some issues and some confusion. And someone asked, how important is it to have the address listed? It's very important. It's if you are working from home and you never go into the office, then I would go ahead and keep that consistent. Google doesn't really like using PO boxes. What they are ultimately trying to do, as I was talking earlier, they're trying to answer the question for the consumer or for the customer, right? If I go to a search and I'm trying to find where is John Smith's office, it's not gonna want to point me to a PO box, because that doesn't necessarily answer my question, right? Of how do I get to the office, or where is it located? You can do your home office. I would recommend just staying consistent. If you've been working out of your office for a long time, your home office, for a long time, and that's where you have it in other places, then I would go ahead and continue to use that address. In most cases, though, I would recommend using the actual office that you work out of. Randall, I saw you unmute yourself. Do you have a question?
Yes, Josh, I was just going to jump in there, just kind of like as an office practice policy for us. We're not going to use home addresses, because they are, in our state, is different than a lot of other states where they're very strict on using the office address or using a licensed office address. So if your home is not licensed, we can't use that as we can't advertise that as a as an office
location. And that's a great call out too, because that can just, again, as I was saying earlier, you want to minimize the confusion for the search engines. So I would in most cases recommend using the office location that you work out of. I think that's the best, as Randall said, his offices or those offices is probably the best place for that. So if there's other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself. I know this one is one that I wanted to spend a little bit of time on, make sure we really hit and didn't cause any additional confusion with that.
So we are using our office's address, not the head office, just our home office.
No, I would use your office's address.
So you have to use the, if you're claiming an address, Google is advertising, and in the real estate, New Jersey Real Estate Commission says that you can only advertise a licensed office. So that's either the head office or the branch office that you work out of. So what we're looking for you to do is, as Josh put in there, you would just claim yourself as a agent within one of the offices.
Yep.
Now, the great benefit of doing this, to get behind why you want to do this, and every one of our agents we want to be able to do this, is because, you know, Google is the big dog, right? So when someone types your name, you know, we want them to be able to find you on the internet. And if you're claiming your own name and your own office through your Google page, you're going to be able to put information about you. So Google's going to show their stuff, you know, first. Am I right, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
So
Google's always going to want to have their own information first, but go ahead.
This gives you the ability to have what you want to have up top and first. So you know, people have a very short attention span. If they can't find you real quick, then they may move on to something else. So, you know, we want everybody to claim their own names within our office.
Yep. And there was a question that came up in the chat there of what address you guys should use. I don't know, Randall, if you've gone through the process and already setting up a page with Google My Business.
Yes, we have. But we have one or two offices that we're still in the midst of updating.
Okay.
So we'll get that information over to you. But to answer Bud's question on the Route 70 East versus EA, I think Josh is going to say, let's see what's already in there. But you can just look us up. The Cherry Hill office is set up and it's been set up for a while. So yeah, you can go and just, you know, take the information that's already there.
Yeah, I would use the information that's already there and staying consistent with what you guys have used in the past. That's what I was asking Randall if it was already set up. So yeah, I would use that information that's already in there. Great. Well, appreciate the questions. I'll keep rolling here, but feel free to keep going into the chat. So thank you guys. Moving right along, the other piece, as I talked about, making sure that you go in. This is an example directly from Google My Business. Once you've gone through set up your actual address, is going in and making sure that you have the service area. You know, as real estate agents, you guys obviously cover a bunch of different areas. It's usually unique to you, and you're the experts in those areas, right? In those neighborhoods, you know about the houses and some of the schools, all of that stuff. That's why, you know, you guys are so good at doing what you do. So taking the time to go in and choose service area. This is a direct screenshot from inside Google My Business. You select info, and then you add the service areas. You can usually add up to 7. It's a little bit, they're always changing that one. It used to be 5. But if you want to add additional neighborhoods, this is, as you see in the example here, this is a New York Google My Business account, adding in Manhattan, or if you have other neighborhoods, other boroughs like that, or areas like that. There's a question that came in the chat: is there such a thing as too many service areas? If you service a lot of areas, I would just put as many as you can fit in there, because what this does, again, this is a signal directly to Google that says, I, Josh Culver, I work in this area. When people are searching for real estate agent in Manhattan or real estate agent in Cherry Hills, real estate agent, any of those combinations, that's where you want to show up. So if you're working in those areas and you service those areas, I would definitely get as many of those as you can. The next evolution of that, and taking that a bit further and to be able to rank higher and continue to move up the rankings for that, is to then have content, either, again, if it's on your own site or Boosh site, that speaks to, if using that Manhattan example, speaks to Manhattan content, right? Of like, hey, I know all the best brownstones in Manhattan, or all of the, as much information of your own that as that local expert, that you can put on a web page or put on your website, just continues to show Google, hey, I know what I'm talking about. This is my consistent information. This is a little bit more of an example of how I know what I'm talking about. Here's some information about this neighborhood that I've been able to share. So and if you're thinking about that user experience, right, on the other side of it, I do that search and I find you, and I see, well, do they really understand Manhattan? Do they have, do they get, what it's like to live there, what it's like in those neighborhoods? Seeing that content on your actual web page, if I click all the way through, or seeing that you in those service areas, that gives me as the consumer and the customer more confidence that you do know what you're talking about, and it's more of that evidence that you can show that you are an expert. Because we've been talking a lot about this, but so much is done online these days, especially during times in the pandemic. It's been, a lot of people have been at home and in front of their computer. So that's where a lot of that search starts, right? And that's where that first touch point with the consumer is. And so being able to give them as much information throughout that digital experience and throughout that online experience is really valuable. And that's how you start to build some of that trust before they even pick up the phone and decide to call you. So the other piece that I just want to talk through, why Google My Business is really important. I said it earlier, but it's one of the few ways you can directly tell Google, this is what I do, this is who I service, this is my information. The other thing that's really powerful about Google My Business is you can also get insights back. You can also get, this is in Google My Business, you have an insights tab, but you can find out how many times you came up in a search. If the number of times in Google My Business people clicked to call you. That's a really powerful, as I said earlier, the ability to click to call on mobile devices. If you're showing up in that first position, or maybe you're just the first person to answer, right? You're not even necessarily the listed in the first position. That's a really powerful experience to have with the user, or someone who's trying to get questions answered, someone who's trying to connect to someone. And if nothing else, this kind of gives you a little bit of a barometer. You can figure out how many people saw your listings in terms of this discovery piece. You can see how many found you as Josh Culver Remax agent versus just New Jersey real estate agent that has the branded versus unbranded. So it's a lot of great insights that you can understand, and you don't have to, you don't have to be in there all the time. You don't have to use this to completely change your business model. You can. I think there's a lot of insights in it, but what you can use is just kind of a benchmark, right? Is like, I thought I was getting more phone calls in the, I thought I was getting more phone calls in the past 3 months or whatever it is. You can use this as a place to kind of check some of that stuff, which to me is really powerful, because you can see the number of calls, you can see the number of people who tried to do driving directions, maybe to your office. Obviously, as a real estate agent and you're kind of out servicing the area, sometimes that's not as valuable, but it's still a lot of valuable insights that ultimately leads to business, which is why I think this is a really important thing to do. And frankly, I don't think it takes too much time. It can, as you continue to add content and stuff like that. But definitely recommend you know, if you have one set up, just going in there and seeing what you can see. You know, it's a place to glean some insights for sure. Moving along, best practices, as you know, making sure, as I said, I can't reiterate this enough, is making sure that information for your name, address, and phone number is consistent. Accurate information is the most critical thing that Google My Business relies on, and just need to have it updated. What you'll also see sometimes is, and you may have seen this in your own experience with Google My Business, is sometimes you see, is this information accurate? You see feedback. So making sure that you've gone in and saying, hey, my info is accurate, is important. So I'm checking the time here. I need to move along a little bit, but let me see. I'll keep running here. So again, I've mentioned it, making sure that the accurate information, address, phone number, your name, and I said it earlier, but the example of 123 South Main Street versus 123 Main Street is important and can lead to issues when there's questions on Google. So just going in there, spending a little bit of time to make sure that stuff is accurate is important. And then the last one I want to really hit on is reviews. That's another for Google to kind of understand, how to rank you and how to display you in their algorithms. Reviews have become a really powerful piece of that. That's where they go to for it's called a signal that they use to understand rankings and to check some of that stuff. So if someone doesn't, and again, thinking about it on the consumer side, right? If someone doesn't have a whole lot of reviews, you might think, okay, maybe I'm not going to use them. Maybe I'll see who's next on the list to engage with. But reviews are really important because even when you have a bad review, it's still an opportunity to engage and show and give more evidence ultimately for the person who may be that customer in the future. So this is an example, right, of you see this first one, it's a 5-star review. These guys are awesome. They're the best. I had to correct that today. These guys are outstanding. And then you see, the little boxes here beneath it are actually the office engaging with them. And, so it says, Pete, thank you. And knowing your daughter, that one was good, thank you for her as well. That's a really powerful signal that shows like, hey, I care about, the people that I'm working with. I want to make sure they have a good experience. But the other thing that I think is really useful in this scenario too, is you see the next one. The next one is a 1-star review. And it's like, this is terrible service, poor communication, and unreliable. That's another opportunity. You don't necessarily want to get into a back and forth with them on a review board of like, oh, you didn't know what you were talking about. You were late all the time. You still want to take that as an opportunity to show your customer service for that possible future client. And in this example, they say, hey, I'm sorry you experienced that situation with our firm. You'll find there's a lot of moving parts to every transaction. So to me, this is a great example of, it's not a great review. You still want to engage with it. You still want to say, hey, sorry we couldn't be your agent at this time, or sorry we had a miscommunication. I think it's still really powerful because then, when I'm the consumer and I'm going through these reviews, if I see a bunch of 5-star ones and that's all I see, that's kind of suspicious. But then you see, how they handle some of the bad reviews too. It's an opportunity to just say, hey, sorry it didn't work out, because that, to me, that's someone who I want to work with. That's someone who's human. They not every interaction is going to be positive, and they're trying to kind of explain that and help them out. So I think that's taking the time to make sure you have reviews and go through them and engage with them is really important. Additional considerations, I'll go through this a little bit quicker. Adding additional content to your Google My Business page, whether that's what your office looks like, maybe that's what you look like, out in the field. Having more information just always helps, just because as you're the consumer, right? And when you start with that first touch point on your phone, you're trying to get as much information as possible. And usually the person that has a little bit more content, you have a better sense of what they might be like to work with. So it's really important that, if you can have photo information on there, Google My Business posts that have images on them get a lot more engagement. And as you see here, some of the stats is 35 more clicks and typically receive 42% more requests for driving directions. So it's a really powerful tool to just, again, show that ultimate, the consumer at the end, what it's like to work with you and giving them as much information as possible. This one's changed a little bit. Content policy is just making sure that if you're using, we have tools like Photofy. If you haven't tried Photofy, it's a great tool to use for images and then also for video. Just making sure that, if you're using any images on the internet, you want to make sure they're not pirated and stolen from somebody else. If someone else didn't take the image, you want to try and use some original content, just because Google doesn't like duplicate content. And then COVID, this is a little bit less of an issue. Hopefully, won't be an issue for too much longer, but still making sure that you have, again, that opportunity to tell Google directly how you handle COVID. If there's virtual home tour options, this is less of a focus now, but wanted to make sure include it because, we can never predict what the world will be like in 9 months. So as if your area is still dealing with some of that stuff, making sure that stuff is updated, just to, again, give the user an understanding of how you handle those things, what the protocols look like, and everything like that. Again, a little bit more, make sure that your phone number is listed. A lot of people are using phone number, obviously, with COVID before they actually go into locations, is important. So take a breath. I know we've covered a lot of stuff. I know there's a couple questions about HomeSnap in here. I'll get to those in just a second. But as I said earlier, we do have other vendors that we work with, other companies that we partner with that can help you set up some of this stuff. That if you don't have the time to be able to go through and manage it all yourselves, completely understandable. We want you guys out there helping people buy and sell homes. You guys are the best at it. If you want to use other services to take on some of that other work, completely understandable. So one of the options is definitely Megaphone. There's other options in the marketplace. Feel free to go there through Mac Center and check those out. But Megaphone is also one of those tools. And what you can do is you can set up your account, and HomeSnap, working with HomeSnap, you can actually increase your subscription to a Pro or a Pro Plus account. They will take the steps. You'll have to connect your account a little bit, some of that walkthrough stuff I showed earlier, but they will take the steps to then clean up some of those listings that might be outside of, and let me clarify again, the Google My Business listings, other directory listings that might be out there on the internet, not related to actually home listings. Go out there to clean up some of those listings and those directories, because those are additional sources for Google to get more information, right? And that's what I was saying earlier is making sure your name, address, and phone number is consistent. Think of realtor.coms or like the Nextdoor, any of those other places that your information might be out listed on the internet. That's an opportunity to clean up, and those are additional signals that Google and other search engines will look for to try and understand more information. So what you can do is you can do a Google or HomeSnap Plus subscription. What they will do is clean up some of that information. You can then view your website, view some of those actions and searches. This is a similar view to what I showed earlier in terms of some of that stuff from Google My Business, right? Is the number of times your profile is being viewed, the number of times you've come up in searches, and then actions are a combination of driving directions and phone calls. Similar stuff that they can take a lot of that off your plate if you want to pay additional services, or if you want to pay a little bit more money for, but it's less actual management that you would have to do on your end. So I'm gonna take a deep breath. I know we ran through a lot of information. There was a question here on the chat that I don't have ownership of my account. Should I set up a new account outside of HomeSnap now? So I'm not exactly sure. So I'm trying to read through the chat. It sounds like Bobby used HomeStat for a little bit. Sounds like you're not using it anymore. That's kind of a unique case. I would, if you still have an account, again, I know I said it earlier, but you still have a Google My Business account, whether you're actively managing it or they are. You could probably still go in and update it. What you may want to do is start by doing a search for yourself in Google My Business or in like Maps. If you're able to find your information, you can go ahead and go through the process of claiming it and then verifying it. I think that's what you're asking is how you should still go through and deal with the Google My Business account. If that didn't answer your question, Bobby, let me know. Again, my email is josh.culver@remax.com. I think that's what you're asking, but if that doesn't fully clarify, I don't know if you're on mute, you can unmute yourself, or feel free to send me an email. I'm hoping that's the right answer. It should still be out there. Are there other questions that I can answer at all? You know, a lot of info has come at you kind of fairly quickly. If it's early for you in the morning and you're not a Thursday person, I understand.
Well, Josh, they're used to being here every Thursday, so.
All right. Well, I'm sorry that everyone had to listen to my voice for an hour on a Thursday morning.
No, that, you know, truly, this has been great. Anybody that has any questions and they want to go directly either to your manager or to Josh, you know, they're going to be available for you. You have everyone's email address, so you can reach out. You know, just you know, some of the top, you know, the points that you hit, Josh, was that this is just another form, another way to get our name out there. And you know, everyone goes to Google, you know, and you know, you want to be able to promote your information and your and claim your information. And I think that the question is really going to come up with when that card comes in from Google, when you're claiming yourself, it's going to be mailed to the office, you know, so make sure your admins know to look for that piece, you know, coming in, so they can notify you when it comes in versus just sticking it in your box or in your mailbox, and you may not see it for you know, another week, you know, until you get back in there. But that's how they're going to handle that.
Yep, great point. Yeah, so I definitely echo Randall's recommendation there, is making sure that you know, if you've gone through this process, that either someone in the office or you yourself are keeping an eye out for it is really important. But as I said earlier, you know, making sure that your information is consistent. It's a really powerful tool to kind of influence directly, you know, how Google lists you, which is not an opportunity you get in a lot of cases. And then leveraging reviews, good and bad, you know, engaging with those customers. Hopefully it's all good. You know, I know everyone is always trying to get more reviews. You know, it's a good opportunity if you're in the middle of a close, right? And people are really excited. That's usually the high point of the whole process, right? It's a great opportunity to say, hey, and here's my Google business profile. Will you just take a few minutes just to give me a review? You know, it's a great opportunity. That's usually a good. You usually have positive results usually in that instance, right? Everyone's so excited, so that's a good opportunity. Sometimes you won't, but still engaging with it, right? And if they take the time to review, you know, thank you so much. I'm so happy you found your house. Or, you know, when they're not as glowing, you know, I'm sorry we couldn't find something to work out. Definitely. And then again, if you don't feel like this feels a little overwhelming, a little too much to do with you know, your bandwidth, we do have other services, Megaphone and other vendors in the marketplace that might be a little bit easier to use.
Josh, can I just ask you a quick question? I'm Denise Crescenzo out of the Sewell office. So first of all, thank you very much. It's a great presentation. Number two, this is free, correct? Doing this Google stuff, this is all free stuff. Then you can connect to the other campaigns to help to optimize. Is that correct?
100% correct. Yeah, Denise.
So the
Yeah,
price is right for everyone.
yeah, it's free. All it takes is time, right? So it's just going through and taking the steps to claim and making sure it's on there. That's all it takes, and it's a huge opportunity.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Josh.
Of course, thank you. Yeah,
And this is a building block here that what we're doing, because this is the basic step. This is your foundation. You start off with your Google, as Denise just said. This is something that's free. This is something that every one of the agents should have. And then we'll come back in later on and we will give you information about Megaphone and then artificial intelligence and all the other programs and technology that RE/MAX has for us. But I think that as a group, we need to make sure we're all on the same level. Everybody has that basic Google thing, and then we'll do an ad to it, in the weeks to come.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's foundational, and it just takes a little bit of time. It's usually a pretty easy cleanup, but very powerful to do.
So we got best information. This was very useful. Thank you very much, right, Bobby, Bonnie, Tony. So it is 10:57, 10:58. So we're going to wrap it up today. I'm hearing a little secret for our office that the Cherry Hill office, I hear they're having their own little barbecue today. But as a surprise, and I'm going to let this out for all of the agents, I'm told around 1:30 in the Cherry Hill office parking lot, Mr. Softy will be there for unlimited free ice cream. So
Got to get there.
it's going to be a great day. If you want to get some unlimited free ice cream, that's courtesy of Federation Title. Samantha, Michelle, and the girls over there want to say thank you for everything that they're doing. So they're having Mr. Softy come out, and I think it's a great day for it. So if you're on diets, take a day off and come on out and enjoy the camaraderie of your fellow agents. Josh, thank you very much. Great presentation.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you guys for all that you do. Honestly, I know it gets said a lot, but I wouldn't be here without you guys. Really appreciate you guys being a part of the network. Really appreciate you guys being a part of RE/MAX. So thank you.
And Sarah behind the scenes, thank you very much, Sarah. We appreciate you also.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you guys. Thank you. We value and truly our gratitude and heart goes out to all of you guys for doing what you do every single day for making RE/MAX what it is. So thank you guys. And I don't know about you, Josh, but I'm booking my flight right now for some
I was gonna
free
say
ice
that's
cream.
why Randall was so excited hopping on. He knew there was an ice cream truck later.
That's right. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right,
Take
thanks,
care.
guys.
All righty.
Take care.
Bye-bye.